U.S. security officials are warning that hackers with ties to the Russian government are targeting internet routers in homes and businesses. In a joint statement, the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and the UK say that these hacks have been happening since 2015 and could lead to cyber attacks that could have both political and economic consequences. For more, we bring in senior reporter at Tech Republic, Dan Patterson, who joins us now. So Dan, wow, this is like such an ominous warning. I feel like we say these things, but this one really made us pay attention. The warning was issued by the US, the UK, and they said that what could be targeted by Russian hacks are things like Alexa, your Fitbit, your smart refrigerator. What is it exactly? What do you make of this, first off?
So these types of cyber attacks target what we call Internet of Things devices. This is a little jargony, but what this really means are all of the networked and connected devices that we as consumers are putting into our homes, but more importantly, businesses put into their offices, and industrial control systems. IoT devices are now used to regulate valves and sensors and other things that we rely on, like the lights and clean water.
What do you think the Russians could be looking into with this type of information?
Well, the Russians are looking for a number of things. I spoke to the spokesperson at the United Nations head of cyber, and he said attribution is really hard, and so motive is really hard with these types of attacks. But there are a few things that we should be aware of. One is a probing. What the Russians and other adversaries are looking for are weaknesses in our systems and the types of systems that we use. So when I say weaknesses, that is, again, these Internet of Things devices, millions of them ship with the default password of password or admin, and of course that's very easy to crack. They're also looking to see how networked those industrial systems are and what our responses are. So for example, a cyber attack could set off alarms like we saw in San Francisco or Austin, where the emergency control alarms go off, which ties up first responders. Or they could target transportation systems, which could keep people from voting or accessing their everyday work.
What do you think the Russians are more likely to target, individuals, or do you think larger corporations?
Both at the same time. So the Russians in particular as an adversary are using three different things. They're using the oligarchs, organized crime, and the government themselves with cyber weapons. So they're looking at businesses and consumers, again, probing and testing for different types of insecurities and weaknesses.
And Russia has a track record of doing this, right?
Russia is very good at doing this. In fact, many of these Russian tactics go back over 100 years, obviously not with digital, but to probe out different types of weaknesses and attack different types of intellectual systems. But specifically with cyber attacks, we can look at Ukraine as a test bed for cyber attacks that can and will happen here in the West. For example, in 2015, Russia successfully turned off the power for the city of Kiev. This is a terrifying thing to have happen. If you think about a city like New York or Austin or San Francisco, one little phishing attack that can trick somebody into allowing an attacker to take over those physical and digital switches that control our systems, that can have a huge impact on Election Day or any other day.
It's so weird, like these Hollywood movies are so real life now. We've heard about these as being sort of out there, and could it be of concern? But you're saying it's legit, and not only is it legit, just in the past week, both the US and the UK have come forward together saying this is something that we need to do, pointing the finger at Russia. The fact that they've come together on a global scale, what do you think that means?
Well, I think that this means that there is a policy response. If we put politics into one bucket and that world operates on its own, in terms of cyber defense, the US and the UK are doing a number of things. There is the idea of a proportional response, and the United States really pioneered what we now call, kind of ominously, cyber weapons. If we go back to Stuxnet, the worm that was released to control Iranian centrifuges, that was 2009. In 2009 terms, that was an age ago. The cyber weapons that the NSA develops now are significantly more powerful and capable of offensive tactics and offensive missions as well. So the U.S. and the U.K. are certainly not sitting by idly and waiting for Russia to do this. However, there are things that we as consumers can do as well. We really are the front line of defense. We can change our passwords. We can make sure that when we put internet-connected devices into our homes, that we check how and where they connect to the outside world, because really we're going to see 20 to 50 billion network devices in the market over the next 5 to 10 years. It is our responsibility to make sure these connected devices are secure and locked down.
Sometimes I just want to go back to the answering machine and the flip phone, Dan.
So do I every day. Unfortunately, the reality that we live in is one where data is king, and everything that we own and touch will be connected. So we have to take security and cybersecurity very seriously.
Absolutely right. Dan Patterson, thank you for joining us, Dan.
Great to be here.